And for them, during that time of the dialogue, in relation to the policy, these were some of the undertakings that they have got. One, that they have used their policies, their policy highlights, to ensure that access to and quality education of learners with special educational needs and disabilities is handled at a considerable rate. And their policy has 5 goals and 21 outcomes. I'll just mention the goals that they have. The first goal intends to improve access, retention, and completion of schooling for students with continue with such numbers. Then the second goal is about development of support services, including the establishment of procedures and tools for special needs educational assessment. This is also a very critical area. Many of us think that in the special needs and inclusive education, what we only need are the teachers. There we are wrong. Education of a learner with a disability starts from a different angle. The teacher comes in at a later date when other people have handled other issues. The other day we were in Kampala School for the Physically Handicapped for an activity, but what we saw in that school really touched us. You know, many times we stand here, and like I also said in the morning, I said, you know, after COVID, in the PSC speech, COVID-19 caused what? More problems. But when you go to Kampala School for the Physically Handicapped, the problems that COVID-19 caused were tremendous. They have mostly learners with physical impairments, but there are those who are even multiply disabled. Now, most of their learners, I would say 3/4 of their learners, undergo physiotherapy, speech therapy, and other interventions. And they have physiotherapists, speech therapists, and others employed in the school on daily basis. They received learners in the reception class, in the P1 and other classes. But when these came, because they had not had earlier interventions, the school started on. And they had progressed. Because some of the learners came when they were not working. After a number of interventions, they started to walk. There are those who could not feed themselves. After a number of interventions, they were able to speak. Speak. So during the COVID-19, these learners went back home. For the 2 years they were home, they reported back to school when they were like they have never, like at the time of entering, they could not feed themselves. Some of them could not even turn on a bed. Mention anything. And when we went to their dining, many of them had sat down and they were being fed because and yet at that time they had learned how to feed themselves. But coming back, they cannot feed themselves. So the house mothers and the teachers are supposed to feed them. So imagine you feeding a child at breakfast, feeding the same child at break time, feeding the same child at lunch time. evening tea, and at dinner. And such a child, you cannot introduce education before the basic needs of the child are first of all handled. So this is very important. In special needs, it's not the teacher who comes first. There are other things that come first, and then we now go to the teacher. The other one is the third goal intends to build capacity of teachers and other specialized personnel in special needs and inclusive education. This one has been widely talked about. And then the last one is, it's about promotion of special needs and inclusive education quality services through provision of adequate teaching and learning resources. Promotion of inclusive and child-friendly approaches in schools, in curriculum and training programs. That is what also ourselves as a country we would want to see. But now that this dialogue has given us an opportunity to re-examine ourselves, that as we are here, what are the issues that we have followed from morning? In those presentations that have been given, what are the issues? And how do we come in to address those issues? Now, given the little time we have, I don't want to go so much in this. This was just a highlight to give you an experience of Rwanda and what kind of experience can we do for our own country. How are we looking at the issues we've been discussing from morning? And what are the issues anyway? If the issues are identified, what are the interventions? So that at the end of the day, we can hold ourselves, because we're also part of government. Because many times people say, government, government, government. We're also part of government. So where are we holding ourselves responsible? Because every person who is in this room has a constituency where there are people they are supposed to support, help, and every day you come across learners with disabilities. When you go back, what are those things that you can do at your level, as maybe others that you can refer, and then others that can be addressed in different forums? I want to end here because I know the activity we shall be going to next is going to be a huge one, but I would also kindly ask the MC, maybe if we can give people like 5 minutes. You know, we've been doing presentations, we've not had any reactions. 5 minutes of, in case there is anything, then we can now go to the actual issues. We want to come up with a call of action after this. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Commissioner, for that good information. And as a master of ceremonies, you may think that she was requesting, but your boss, once she talks like that, is directing. So we are going to abide by your request. Madam Sarah Yesiga, please get hold of the microphone so that you've heard what Commissioner has said. 5 minutes reaction before I invite Dr. Patrick to also walk us through the next and almost the last session. Yes, there's some hands, but be mindful of time.
okay, now it's time for us to react. I know from morning we have been filing, we have been recording all what has transpired, and there are things that have built up in your heads, on your records, what from whatever has been presented. So, and I told you that we are here to create or to innovate or to come up with the ideas. Yes, we are here, we are discussing. The policies are there, but we are not adhering to them. We are still having challenges in the field, and yet the policies are there. Many children are still being left out. You have seen what was presented by Quintin, the many learners who are out of school and still being excluded. Hope gave you the experience she has got recently, because she's just doing her intern after moving away from Makerere University. And she has told you, even at Kyambogo University, she's still facing challenges. Dr. Job knows, because he is her mentor and her lecturer, and he's also my lecturer. So, what new things? What are we going to do? Can we? What has gone wrong?
Okay. And I want our patrols also to take note, but be mindful of time, dear members. Let me begin with this lady here. Introduce yourself first and then move straight to the point.
Thank you very much. My name is Julie Sebidekamia. I'm from Crane. I would like to thank you very much for organizing this excellent dialogue. And my two responses are for, in terms of awareness, we have seen that 6 years is too late for identification. Sorry. 6 years is too late for early identification. But we could have partners like the Ministry of Gender. Can we engage them to increase that kind of awareness for faith-based entities? How can Ministry of Gender help us to support early awareness? Can we use the community-based structures like the CDO's office, the DCDO's office, to increase awareness for early identification? In a forum like this, I would have expected at least more representation of universities apart from Kyambogo. Can we be more intentional next time to call upon the knowledge providers at higher education levels? National Council, I don't see a representation for them. So can we be more intentional in inviting such people to such forums? And then Crane, for a number of years, has provided learning resources to schools, and we engage with publishers, but would like to call upon ministry especially and the Curriculum Development Center not to pass, not to allow publishers to publish any other textbooks if they have not considered other children with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Crane. The second one, I will answer it quickly.
Okay.
It will be answered back.
This side.
Okay, let's wait.
Thank you, Walgembe Joseph from Stromae Foundation. Two quick comments. One, I really liked the investment case for inclusive education. But my wonder, is it possible for the Ministry of Education and government partners to produce that kind of persuasive information in accessible, for the lack of a better word, an accessible format that it can be consumed, for example, by my late mother, who was struggling in her mind whether it was worth to send me to school, because those arguments were very persuasive. Secondly, the presentations we've had since morning, albeit straight to the point, are also quite dampening of the soul, because they almost present the situation like it's impossible to do inclusive education. But how about if we also went out on a search spree for success stories, those practical bits that have worked, homegrown solutions that have been tried and tested and have produced results, such that we can also tell the doubting Thomases that actually it is possible to promote inclusive education and do it almost properly in Uganda from the few success stories that exist. I'm sure that will even make Mr. Lenyo prouder. Thank you.
Here, then we move on.
Thank you very much. Madam Commissioner, what I'm going to mention in case it's in place, then I ask to be forgiven for that. To me, I am requesting, if it's possible, that let this be tackled at a strategic level, beginning from the strategic level, where leaders and managers are brought on board on a deliberate symposium so that matters of disability are widely synthesized, brought on board in their strategic plans, so that the budgeting system is right from up downwards and a means of ensuring that they are implemented is seen. Finally, the second one is formation of a kind of interministerial working group that will regularly be meeting to carry out regular evaluation, monitoring the activities and implementation of disability in all spheres of education levels. I beg to submit. Thank you.
Thank you.
Supplement him. I'm from Kanongo, Kenneth. When I find that we are getting this information, I find it difficult to have this done conclusively when we don't bring parents on board. Can we bring any form of dialogue, either per district, to bring these parents on board such that they study and get to know what they are supposed to do with these disabilities? I thank you.
I'm calling you Stephen. I work in community business education island. Number one, teachers, there's a need for refresher training for teachers. Because some teachers, some of them, they don't know existing roles, which they are talking about what the professor has been talking about. Two, there's a need of using role model approach, whereby people who pass that inclusive school and tell us what happened. So lastly, we have been conference centered. I propose that next time we have regional, whereby we can share experience, what is happening in Karamoja, what is happening in so that we come out with what is a comprehensive fact. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
Let me begin from behind and I come this side. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you so much. My name is Biekwaso Charles. I work with the Uganda National Association of the Blind and the Legally Blind. Dr. Ojok said there was no special school in Karamoja, but it's not true. There is a special school for the blind, which is called the Kangole. Only that of recent, I think the secondary level phased out, but the primary is still there. I'm not aware of other units for persons with disabilities, but at least there is a school for the blind. Then, two, I think we are seeing some improvement. Some of us who have been around disability for a long time, we have seen challenges getting over. For example, in the 80s, we saw the first teacher who is blind sitting for the teaching exams, going even, we struggled going to the president. I really thank Dr. Milton Obote. He was very positive. We stormed his office, and we were able to do, the teachers were able to do the examinations. So that was in absence of the policies and the laws. Now that there are policies, they are also being abused, much as they are in place. For example, you find that in some schools, DEOs, cows, they transfer experienced teachers from special units and from those inclusive schools or with the inclusive setting. They transfer them and leave the children yearning for education. Why do you transfer the teachers who have experience and take them to schools where there are no children with learning disabilities? So that is the challenge. And again, if you ask the cows, DEOs who are present here, is there anybody who has got the Person with Disability Act in his office? It is not there. What about the CRPD? It is just a dream. So I think we have a long way to go. We have policies in place. We thank the government, yes, but the policies are not implemented. Our friends in Rwanda, they copy from us and they go and implement. They are doing well. You go to Kenya, they are doing well. But here, we talk of policies, they are in place, but the policies are not implemented. Yeah? And they are there, very good. Even the Constitution has very good provisions which protect persons with disabilities. But how much is it followed? Finally, we are talking over other laws. I've not heard anybody talking about the Marrakesh Treaty. Eh? The treaty actually compares all the publishers. It's good somebody from Crane talked about the books. So for us as Uganda National Association of the Blind, we are struggling to see that the policy, good enough it was ratified, but now the domestication. It is talking its different language, then the Copyright and Labeling Act 2006 is also talking in the different language. There are also other policies which are just incidental to the policy, like the Bajini, whatever, all those laws. They are saying they cannot domesticate one law, which is the Marrakesh Treaty. So we are struggling. It has taken 2 years. I wonder whether UNESCO, UNICEF can give support. There's one time when they made an intervention, but it's also like as if it was done. They forgot about it. So we are also pointing the guns on them. Let them come us and support, our efforts for the domestication, because it gives someone with print disability. Some people think print disability is only blind. There are others who fail to read and write, and there are also other formats of braille reading or accessible formats, like the human narration, the whatever, something which can be audio, etc., etc. Let me end here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, members. And members, I want to remind you again that we are here to create new knowledge and then put that knowledge into practice. So, repertoires, you are listening very well, because the next the next session that will follow after me, after this question and answer, is going to see, we want to see what people are saying. How do we bind them together to put them into actionable strategies, so that we go from here saying that this is an action that we are doing. If we are talking about transfers of teachers without really thinking, we can't do what would you call it?
Okay.
That word.
That very one.
Without considering those learners who are there. So,
Madam Sarah, allow me also. We have quite a number of hands. There are many, and since we are dialoguing, we have to talk, okay? But kindly, let's be mindful of time. Let's be mindful of time.
Where you can give a recommendation for somebody.
Let me give from here.
The repertoires will note it, and then we shall see where do we place it.
Madam Sarah, I'm Sam Mbangire, DIS and Acting DO Nakasongola. I want to add my voice to people who have talked and said identification of these learners at 6 years is too late. As educationists, for us, we are waiting for these children to come to school. But for sure, these children are in the villages. My colleague there has already identified that we are missing the Ministry of Gender. We needed their intervention to assure us what are they going to do in the communities, especially to identify these children. Because as DEOs, as inspectors, as teachers, we are waiting for these children at school, but they are not there. There are very few who can come. Then secondly, I was reading the guidelines the Ministry of Education has just issued. We have a sector of SNE at district level. I'm requesting the ministry to factor in a grant for SNE to support local governments. We are talking about capacity of teachers. If we continuously, these officers who are specialists, if they continuously refresh and train more teachers, they give them more skills, with time, the inclusive education which we are advocating for will be real. But without a grant to support these officers, we are doing very less. Thank you.
I know Commissioner, my Commissioner will answer that.
Okay. Let me, very brief, and I proceed.
Thank you very much. Mine is basically on the early identification. To me, I suggest if possible we could revive the approach of years. I personally, I remember that time I was a SNECO. I remember very well how years was working. It had a structure. It enabled the early identification. SNECOs could move deep in the villages, move and support even other teachers. Then I want to supplement on the idea of capacity building. As much as we are saying we refresh the SNE teachers, to me I suggest if possible we could make it compulsory. At least all teachers could be brought on board. Because in my district where I am the inspector of schools, those children are there at school, but there is no support. Because when those children are not attended to, they just drop out. I submit. I am Onyai Patrick, Inspector of Schools, Amuria.
Thank you, Patrick.
Amuria, thank you. Gender balance, where are the ladies?
Thank you very much. My name is Amoha Monica from HISP Uganda, implementing the Data Use Innovation Project. My call is for us really to address that data challenge, because without data we can't make informed decisions, we can't allocate resources appropriately. So for example, in the 4 districts where we are implementing, we are able to collect this data from schools, and just looking at our dashboard, I'm just seeing that the number of special needs Braille machines to a special needs learner is 1 to 636. So just that data calls for action on buying additional machines. So I'm really calling for us to embrace innovations, really to address the data challenge, to address this problem. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica.
Okay.
Thank you. Mine is small. I had a list, but members have already contributed to others. Mine is just on the identification of children with
name and the
Martin Oboy. I work with Plan International. Identification of children with different abilities is what we are facing as the biggest issue when we do our work in schools. The reasons being teachers do not have the capacity to identify these children. I remember a case where children with excess, we can say, excessive ability, maybe someone with really highly intelligent child is being discontinued from school just because the child is challenging the teacher. This particular child was able to learn contents for the whole year in one term. Then next term he wants to progress to the next class. So it became an issue. When we mobilized children back to school, we identified that child in the community, we brought him. In P7, actually, through accelerated education, he was the only child who got first grade. So you'll find that different abilities, how to identify and how to go with them, is an issue that we need to think about and try to build capacities of teachers to really know how to identify and deal with them. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All protocols observed. My name is Alex Tunamasko from National Curriculum Development Center. One of the issues I want to raise is Dr. Joko raised an issue that SNE is given less consideration in PTC and also in other training institutions it is not even existing. So I was of the view that now that there is teacher education reforms which are being made, can SNE be made a fully-fledged course unit? They may make around 3 or 4 course units. One to educate children with vision impairment. Another one to educate children with hearing impairment. Another one to educate children with intellectual impairment. Another one to handle inclusive education. Those are at least 4 course units which should stand alone and come out vividly to address issues, to support teachers with enough skills to handle these children. Thank you.
Thank you. Dr. Ojok, you've heard. From NCDC.
So,
let me begin with ladies here.
and NCDC, you are there to make to support them. Hey, universities alone with the curriculum. Okay. I was going to say that, why don't you? But you know, they are standing alone.
Thank you so much. Achen Florence is my name. Once again from Omoro District. I am here representing my cow. I would like to appreciate so much the organizers for this initiative. This dialogue is very, very friendly. I want to add a little on the aspect of data, that we should not start so much the data collection from schools, because there are a number of these children in the villages and we do not have information about them. They can't be quite many, and they are not coming to school because the parents, perhaps, as we had the issue of attitude, are not aware that these children also have equal rights like these other seems to be normal children. So I would recommend that we make a purposeful effort to have the information collected right from the villages, because if they are done, we'll be able to make follow-up to see that these children have gone to school. And then secondly, one of us was afraid that the districts, for example, do not recruit people, persons with disability. I would like to say this is not the case for Omoro District. For Omoro District, we have a whole clerk to council, assistant cow, acting town clerk, who is a person with disability. We have also recruited a parish chief who is visually impaired, and we also have a member of District Service Commission who is a person with disability. So for Omoro, I think we are on the right track. And then on the issue of transfer of teachers, these days what we do when we intend to have transfers, we sit as a team with all the inspectors, all the education officers to discuss and agree this teacher moves from this school to another school, because we are trying to avoid such kind of mishap where a knowledge person on a certain aspect, like for this matter special needs, goes to a school where he or she will have little relevance. So this is the submission I wanted to make. Thank you so much.
So other district, please speak it from Amuro.
Omoro District.
Omoro, you will see people coming to benchmark, see how you are doing it, and people can.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Idi Mubarak. I'm in charge of inclusive education in KCCA. Now there are issues like people are talking about identification. For us in the KCCA, we are planning to roll out the learning needs identification tool to all our teachers. So we only encourage our teachers to get us time. We are able to do this. Then assessment, we have an assessment center at Natural Blue, which is currently supported by Crane and Ministry of Education. But very soon the Crane project is ending. I therefore request partners who are ready to come in and support. We offer assessment free of charge, and we assess learners from 0 to 18 years. It is free of charge. You simply make an arrangement with me, then we give you an appointment, you bring the child for assessment. Then we have an issue of teachers or schools that reject our children with special needs on the basis of disability. People will know this is a policy issue and it's a human rights issue. We are struggling with these people, and for us, in case, if, for example, we have a school that we have summoned to justify in writing why discriminate our learners with special needs. It is illegal, and we are handling this. I request that we all do the same in our spaces. We need to also create awareness in public. People down there don't know these rights. People don't know how these children can be supported. I wish to request that if media could provide us space, we talk to the public. It will help us to sensitize our people. Lastly, I want us to empower the parents. Parents are struggling down there. Their children are rejected, and the parents will fear even to say something. So it is just a right, a human right for this person to study, just like any other human being. So let us empower the parents, and we are there to support our children. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Edie.
Okay.
And the members, you see, we are already coming up with the actions that we need to take. The policies are there, so for those of you who have been fearing that, but how do I enter this, I will leave that teacher. Dr. Joko has gone through the inclusive education policies that you can stand on, that you can anchor on to say, no, it cannot happen, the policy says so.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. I'm Moses Ayoli, a teacher from St. Francis Secondary School for the Blind. I'm also a person with visual impairment, and I appreciate all of you. The conversations are going on well, and I think this is an opportunity for us, since it is a Holy Week, we repent from here, because I know there is a lot that is taking place outside there, so that when we go back, we are changed people. Actually, if you look through the community, if you have many tears, you might come back without. Recently in Lira and this other district from Apache, Kwania, there are teachers with visual impairment who applied and other disabilities. Lira City took only 2 and said there is no more school for deploying the other 4 remaining. That means you people who are our stakeholders, look at us as people who are only supposed to teach in there, especially in schools. But that is not the case. When somebody is coming out from school, he has trained as a teacher, not as a blind or a lame teacher, but as a general teacher. So now that we're talking about inclusive education, and we know that people with special needs or learners with special needs are not concentrated to a specific area, why can't we distribute these people with the skills as we train more, so that the education can be implemented within the reach of all learners in the community? Then Dr. Ojoko told us about the gap in special needs education at the secondary level. I've always been sharing with people, but today I'm happy it is going straight to the ministry. I advise that can we integrate special needs education as a full course in the universities for teachers at school in the universities, so that when they come out, they don't again look for additional course to get experience. Because we have seen teachers suffering in the schools. A teacher is posted like to St. Francis, and most of them have also turned down the job saying, how can I teach blind people? So let us incorporate special needs education in universities for teacher trainees, so that when they come out, they're able to implement. Then a direct appeal to UNEB. I first of all appreciate the good job that is being done by UNEB, but there is a challenge. I'm seeing a lot of shying down from students. I teach ICT, and I'm an expert of assistive technology, but you realize that there is one aspect of policy at UNEB that is scaring our learners. The learners want to do ICT at A level, but some of them are doing economics. You see the condition here, if you are doing economics, do sub-math. And you know the records of mathematics among people with visual impairment. We still need to battle it. So UNEB, please, let us not kill the ICT skills that is coming up in the country. If you can remove this from your system,
that you create a provision that if a person declares that he has a visual impairment, let that person proceed and register for sub-ICT. Because we presented this to you, you said, no, you accompany it with a letter. But the problem is the results delay. Sometimes we receive the results when the person is already in the university, which is terrible. And all the stakeholders here, we have policies. But if the heart is not there, the policy is useless. As you were told, we are all candidates. Look at yourself as that person who is down there. So that as you go back to implement what is being shared here, you have the experience. Actually, if we had blindfolders here, then you people, they tie your eyes and say, go out. We would see the drama. So please, I wish us all the best as we go and implement what we are discussing here. May God bless you.
Thank you, Moses. And very, very pertinent issue.
This is a very, very exciting session. Now from here then I go back.
You may be prepared to tell us if there is a window for changing the policy.
Yes, I will be very brief. I'm Kadondi Harriet from Sironko District. I'm an education officer, SNE. For us, we have gone a step ahead. I'm here with the DIS Sironko. I'm impressed because he has been providing me with the facilities to move in the field. As a teacher, I have the learning aids. I moved to, there was a workshop somewhere, and I got somebody peeling matoke using legs. So I had to take those photos. I couldn't leave any meeting without talking to those people about special needs. I like special needs. Here is my DIS too.
I'm thinking that I want to thank all the presenters for today. Mine is that whatever we have got here, as much as we are advocating for this to go to the colleges, but we already have the teachers in the field who are handling inclusive education. We need this information that we have got here to go back to those teachers. And it is IDDIS, the Special Needs Education Officer, to do that. Please, I'm emphasizing that when we go back, we can also pass the same to the teachers. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm being guided that what we are deliberating on and what you are giving actually is also touching the next session, whereby we are going to have action points under the different areas that we want actions on. And Jackson, I think it is not bad. What the doctor will come and do, we shall see under each of those. Because there are some that we have already identified that we have put there. But if there is any other very critical, then we can either mention it. Then, in fact, that's why I want to call forward, if Bennett can agree with me.
I think.
Yeah.
I think the hands are so many. Maybe if you want these people to write on the papers. But the reason we're here, you all know, is to do what? To dialogue. But I think according to my program, this session was supposed to be chaired by or moderated by Dr. Ojok, I think. So that, but of course, before I invite Dr. Ojok, now that will be in the next session. Let the commissioners first respond to a few.
Yes.
And then we proceed. Because we should be out of here by 4. Thank you.
Commissioner is responding to some, and then there is a question for UNEB if there is a window, then UNEB and the Kyambogo, and then another question was Minister of Gender, if you are around. They could answer on the early identification. The 6 years is already late. What arrangement do you have?
Yeah. And I also know that we have our participants online. Can the person in charge give us that information? Commissioner.
Thank you so much. I'll try to be quick. I think I'll answer 3, but they will be related to what others have said. As ministry, we would also want to take a strategic level to see that we handle issues of disability. And why do we want to do this? When you find somebody speaking for special needs or speaking for learners with special needs, then you're able to tell them maybe in 3 or 4 categories. One, this person has a child or has a relative or is in contact with a person with special needs. Those ones will be positive about it. Then 2, maybe somebody has done a course in special needs or in one way has related herself or himself with those children. If not, the person is a parent. If not, the person has a relative. But if you find these good people we find in offices and everywhere without any relationship, I can assure you, they will always be negative. Somebody will even say, what is this one talking about? Because even a quick one is where we work. Sometimes when we stand up to speak about issues of these, somebody, as they get out, they will even say, even the commissioner herself is special needs. Yeah, and this happens always. And the issue is that they have not had that contact with the people with the special needs. Or if you speak, they may look at it as, but is what this person is speaking a reality? So at a strategic level, why Uganda performed very well in the past, when we had Danida, I think Danida took all key stakeholders, right from ministers, right from MPs, commissioners, administrators, mention anyone whom they thought was to give a decision. They were all taken to, flown all over the world. And when they came back, each of them was saying, yes, special needs, because they saw, they learned. Now for us, we are just speaking. It is until we get people to see, to feel, is when we shall be on the same page. But if we are going to continue the way we are saying, we come here, dialogue, talk, I can assure you we shall still get less. Then on the issue of interministerial team, yes, we work on issues of disability. We have an interministerial team. We are working with the OPM, we are working with the Ministry of Health. Is there somebody from Ministry of Health here? Yes, you're welcome. I expected Health to be here. Then also we have Ministry of Gender and others. We normally have quarterly meetings and we share all this information. But like as I said, some of the actors have not had a feel of it. So sometimes it's very difficult for them to take action. I think those were the most critical. The others are also still critical. But since we are going into a broader discussion, we want to capture most of these things. I've also written them down, which I think will go into the next session. And lastly, about the training of teachers. I remember, I think I said this here, that in the new teacher policy, every teacher will do training for 2 years, first year, second year. You will have to do a lot of special needs and inclusive education. Then it is in the 3rd year that you will go for your specialty alone. But there is a lot we are going to be doing for the 1st and 2nd year, so that every teacher that will come out will be able to handle learners with special needs. But I know those who will go to the 3rd year may now do the specialization of the special needs that you require. Thank you.
Okay, thank you once again, Commissioner Sarah. Now, allow me invite Dr. Ojok Patrick. We are continuing with the discussions. Don't think that I've ignored you. Still, we shall hand over the microphone to you, and then we'll say what we are supposed to say. Doctor, please take the floor.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be back again without time to respond to some of the issues that emerged from my presentation, but maybe just to still maintain, yes, there is no special school in Karamoja, what you mentioned is a unit. A unit is not a special school. There's no special school in Karamoja. Yeah, so this session is supposed to delve deeper into some selected thematic areas for the call to action. And the 4 areas are and management. Another is teaching and learning assessment. The third is early identification, assessment, and placement, and then reasonable accommodation. In the wisdom of the planners, this was intended as a group discussion session, meaning that we should split and discuss at that level and then report to the plenary the findings at group level. That is the intended approach. I don't know what the pragmatic approach is going to be, considering the time left and the energy levels. I just need a quick consultation, because ideally that means, one, we needed to have breakout rooms where people would go, divide according to these 4 thematic areas, and in those rooms you would discuss and then report here. And I think that would need time as well. And then the other issue is we don't have breakout rooms, do we? We don't have breakout rooms, we just have this hall. So that means if we continue with that approach, we have to divide within the hall. So I don't know how easy that will be, especially how time saving it will be. The other alternative is to proceed as a plenary and allot specific minutes to each of the thematic areas and then just conclude the way we are now. Because if we are to go into dividing groups and then going to groups, discussing, coming back, we might end up not leaving here by fall of evening. Okay, so the other thing is you just discuss at the table. You could also as well just discuss at the table and then get a representative to tell us what your table thought about the theme of your choice. So can I have somebody to advise me or mediate? Just one person. Then we proceed. I thought you were a planner.
Can I advise? Or okay, let me. If I'm a planner, then let me
You're a
pass over the
planner.
microphone.
Let's leave the audience first.
Advice?
The audience. Yes. There's somebody. Right. You can. You want to?
Thank you. I would advise that maybe we go with the second option, where we'll go one theme by theme, and then we allot some minutes for it. We conclude like that, in the interest of time. Because if we are to go table by table, the tables are so many, we may not be realistic. Thank you.
Another? Esther.
Thank you, Chair. I just want to agree with her, but also basing on the fact that some of these reflections, discussions have actually been done. So maybe just to concretize and come up with some recommendations going forward. Thank you.
Okay. So by that you mean we proceed as a plenary? Okay. That is the consensus roughly generated. Okay, so let's proceed as a plenary, meaning we shall go theme by theme, And also, as Esther said, the original plan was for under each theme, we would start by unpacking what are the key issues, the key concerns, both policy and practice and programmatic concerns, and then what are the corresponding call to action. But as she said, in the different previous presentations and discussions, most of these concerns have somehow been raised. So meaning the real issue here now is to front the call to action. So as you contribute, well, you can still highlight a concern, but our focus really should be on what are the call to action corresponding to each of the themes. With that, I think let us proceed, starting with data collection and management. So data collection and management are a number of issues. One is the issue of integrating disability in national data sets and other data. And then also having data at different levels. So at ministry, at local government, at the school, okay? And then of course the whole issue of also having standalone disability data. So it is not just about mainstreaming disability in data, but also having disability standalone data. And then there's also the issue of this lump sum approach to disability. So when we say we have disability data, does the data speak to all types of disability? So disaggregating disability data by different types of disability, and then mainstreaming disability data in different types of data that we have. For example, does poverty data integrate disability so that we have a disaggregated analysis of poverty outlook of Uganda by disability, the way we have by gender and by regions and so on. Well, that was just to open up the discussion around disability data. I think let me throw it back to you to do more justice to that theme. Thank you. Let's give this 5 minutes, depending on how rich you are. Because if you still have hands up, we shall see what to do. 5 minutes. Be concise. Be concise. Let there be more than one microphone reaching out so that the MC is not worked up by the end of the day.
Thank you very much.
And
My name is
Charles and Sanya, please, and other people take note.
My name is-
now I'm speaking more than writing.
My name is Aloysius Nsenga. My view about data is that apparently we don't have accurate data about disabilities in the country. All we have been discussing is about children with disabilities who are already in school. But there are more children who have failed to go to school, and I think there are more than those who are in school, so we don't have information about them. Now, apparently, I think the best way of getting correct and up-to-date information about disabilities is to be allowed to put data-specific questions into the main questionnaire which OBOS is about to use, because I think since we're about to have a census, the most efficient mechanism is to collect this information using OBOS, but OBOS should allow the Ministry of Education to have disability-specific questions inserted into their main questionnaire, and we should be ones to design these questions depending on the data we want to come up with. I don't think we can have any other efficient mechanism of going up country to do research about disabilities up to grassroots level unless we work through OBOS. Thank you.
Thank you. So that's an action point, mainstreaming disability in the data collected by UBOS. So the action center is definitely Uganda Bureau of Statistics. Good.
Yeah, thank you so much, MC. Thank you, everyone. My name is called Jamal. I'm here representing War Child Holland from the research department. and we are one of the organizations being funded by KICS through, of course it is funded by IDRC through the KICS initiative. My reflection upon that will be so brief, and hopefully MC will excuse me for that. And for the part of the data, I think my reflection will be the use of the Washington Group questions. And currently, under the KICS funding that we are getting, we have developed this innovation. Currently, we are calling it caregiver engagement, and I'm happy to report that we are prototyping it. We have done the feasibility study in Yumbe district, and we are currently also prototyping it in Isingiro district. So what we came up with is that the advantage was we have inserted these questions within enrollment forms that teachers are using across the various schools. So when they're enrolling learners, teachers are quick to pick any kind of form of disability that are associated with learners. And this has been helpful in a way that teachers have been able to, first of all, provide differentiated support to the learners according to their level of disability. And in our prototyping exercise, there are quick actions that teachers don't need a full deliberation of counsel or funding to do. Like when a child who is having a problem with the vision, it's a mild disability, the child is quickly moved in front of the class. That is a very solution-oriented kind of action that is taken on spot. And also we have found out with that innovation is parents are more engaged in discussions of the situation of their children with the learners, whereby they clearly declare it all to the schools that this learner is having this, and let's look for solutions of suggesting them. And one of my last reflection that will be more like a question to the whole group that is here, since we are working very hard around the clock in this area here, especially the disability research that is pointed out, what would be the suggestion that you feel, because Dr. Jock talked about the gaps that we have, implementation gap, what would be the suggestion of areas of focus of partners like us? How can we make things better? Because currently, as I speak also, still under the KICS funding, we have done policy network analysis across 3 countries, that is Uganda, Chad, and Sudan. And we came up with wonderful results. Dr. Quinton mentioned earlier on that Uganda has really progressed a lot. And indeed, in regard to...
Summarize.
Yeah, just to summarize, Uganda's EdTech policy has been, we have done the policy network analysis on EdTech, and Uganda is far ahead of the country. And we were also able to understand that currently EdTech is the policy priority area for the Ministry of Education. I would like also to pose it as a question to the Commissioner and all members inside here. We should also look at the aspect of how does the national education inclusive policy, how does it align with the EdTech policy that Uganda currently have, given that EdTech is really a priority area and it is an innovation that is being taken up. Thank you.
By EdTech, you mean assistive technology or something?
Yeah, by EdTech, I mean mostly digitalized, personalized kind of learning whereby learners learn at their own pace. Okay. But of course, EdTech has a very wide kind of definition according to the policy. Thank you.
Next.
Members, let's be brief and precise. Let me begin from this side.
Do better than that in timekeeping.
Thank you.
But because you had a lot of good
Musungu Lydia Constance, DEO Mbale. Under data, thematic zone, I would propose that we identify and collect data and get numbers of teachers who have trained at diploma level and they have specialized in different areas, so that we are aware of how many of them are trained, and also time memorial. They have been promised to get on payroll and get an increment, and since they have never. So it looks like they are getting to train, and the training is just giving them another level in their career, but they are not really benefiting from it. So I think that could be one way of improving. Also, we need to collect data of these successful stories the gentlemen and ladies who have succeeded, when they tell out their story, it motivates and inspires other children to come out. Unfortunately, I just lost the first graduate of Makerere, blind student from Makerere University, and we are burying him tomorrow. But he would have been one of those to come out as the first blind graduate of Makerere University. So if we get that, it can help us motivate and inspire others. Also, we need to design a uniform form that every head teacher, every institution uses as they admit students, so that they are able to know how many of which disability they have admitted.
Okay.
But also we need to sensitize the students, because we have a student who is partially blind, but because of stigma he doesn't want to be counted as a blind, as a special need student.
Okay, I think I'm going to request you to spare time for the others.
Thank you. The other one was for you. We appreciate what they are doing, but we want to request that what they are supporting our senior 4s, 5 and P7 students is at least rolled down to other classes, so that these students grow while knowing how things are flowing at examination classes.
Data.
Thank you.
Thanks. Let's thank you.
Well noted.
Please roll to the other sections of the room also. Probably the issue of collecting data on teachers with the SNE training should not just end at diploma. You can improve on that. We just need a list of all the levels. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Please, one bullet pick of the points you have. Which one is the most?
Thank you very much.
Give us.
My name is Mary Nyango. I'm Education Officer of Nakawa Division, Kampala District. My issue is on special need learners. We are on getting their data. For us in Kampala, this information about children with special needs in schools, we collect this data timely and submit to our director, who subsequently submits to the ministry. However, I have one issue that pains me. I have a special needs school in Nakawa Division, that is Ntina School for a Deaf. Year in, year out, since the school was set up, none of the child got a first grade in that school, irrespective of many teachers. Although we have other issues like teaching learning materials, the teachers try to do their best. In my own opinion, why can't we let these children transition to the next level, secondary, without subjecting them to doing examinations? Because these children, they will never pass like children in inclusive education.
Okay, I think that's a good point, but we would like to get issues around data for now.
Chair, how much time are we remaining with?
2 more minutes, just because we have exceeded even the 5. Get one from this and then the other column.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
This is Dr. Pamela once again. I have been listening, and what I know is that in OBOS, they collect data on persons with disabilities. What I know, EMIS, they collect data on children with disabilities, but I don't know what is the problem that we cannot have data. So I am proposing that let us engage universities. Right now, the government has many universities scattered everywhere, and engage a university to collect data, to do research on children and persons with disabilities. Thank you.
Right. Can we move it? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Data collection. Chair, I don't know whether we are going to duplicate roles. I remember not long ago, Ministry of Education engaged the Crane. And Crane came up with a very good tool
for data collection. And I think Minister of Education already endorsed it. How different is that tool from what we are discussing now? Is there a way that we can look at that tool? What is a missing gap in there so that we do not duplicate resources and services?
Good point. Minister,
Okay.
take note.
I think there is somebody from Queen.
Thank you very much. The tool is identification, but I would like to comment on my earlier my earlier submission. There's a difference between identification and assessment. And please note, if we use identification data to inform our interventions, we will be misled. So we have to prioritize identification, but also pay attention to assessment. Can we invest in the assessment centers? Can we revamp those assessment centers? Crane has started the one in Kampala. Can others be started elsewhere to copy or replicate from the one of Kampala? Thank you very much. But the tool is here. It has helped us identify quite a number of children for support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And very quickly, I'm just recommending that we need to collect routine data to support evidence planning. Then the data needs to be visible. You talked about all the different levels, but we also need to include partners. Partners need to be able to access this data. And then the system that we should adopt should be flexible to incorporate data in cases of emergencies. We've just had COVID, Ebola, and we have a lot of data we can collect there. Then lastly, on the linkage, this system should be linked to UNEB, to survey data, so that we have an integrated analysis of this data, and also encourage data use. Because if we are not using this data, especially at district school level, then this data will not be collected anyway. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes. Chair, this is, I think, the last person here.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I'm called Dr. Paul Kasigeire from Ministry of Education and Sports, Department of Health, Education and Training, where we're having a challenge of inclusive education or disabilities. But let us come to specific. My concern on behalf of my boss, the one I'm representing, Dr. Safin Kismusen Commission, is about hope and fear about medical service delivery to these people we are talking about. They are educated, they are not yet educated, but here they are sick and they are in front of me. In my hands, I'm the one to treat, to save their lives. So what do I do? The question here is, how do you think, as we are deliberating on this, how do you think doctors, nurses, midwives can be made inclusive? That's my concern. I can stop there. Thank you.
Good question.
Over to you, Chair.
So thank you. The last question is a call about extending capacity building to cover also the health sector. Like 2 weeks ago, I think, Pamela and I were in Kitgum district under the auspices of CBM, and we were training stakeholders from the health sector on disability mainstreaming, and we can't wait to share what was the experience. Yeah, that's a short answer to that loaded question. Ladies and gentlemen, you'll excuse us if we don't give everyone a chance to speak because of time, but there's still room. We have more 3 themes now. You can talk. So our next thematic area now is on teaching and learning assessment. So under here, we're going to now zoom on to the teacher education system and teacher education reforms that we are undergoing at the moment, looking at the Uganda National Institute of Teacher Education Reform, university CPD requirements that we have there, and then also the curriculum issues, instructional materials, and then intercycle transition. So there are a lot of issues here that I also mentioned in my presentation, and other people also spoke about teacher education and then assessment of learning. So I think we shall now give the microphone back to you to either raise more sticky issues around this theme or to give us concise action points that we should take note of. Thank you.
One is order here.
Thank you very much. Councillor Ruwanyonga, working with USAID Uganda and Integrated Child Youth and Development, and on behalf of the Chief of Party, I'm here. I'm going to the materials, teaching materials and learning aids. We provide early grade reading books and Janice handbooks that prevent violence against children in schools or school-related gender-based violence. But we haven't had the ones in Braille. And Jane here is always asking me, when are we brailing those materials? And I think on this note, I would suggest that the department be assisted through their budgeting processes to ring fence some budget or some money for helping in such kind of areas where they can translate the normal text materials into Braille and other equipments that may be there. So if they ring fence this money, it can support where the implementing partners have stopped. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was quite concise. Let's follow that example.
Thank you very much. My name is Abitegeka Sale. I'm a head teacher in an inclusive school from Masindi district. I'm just going to give some action points. One of them, why are we training these learners, or why do we teach them? I think the major goal is to make them self-reliant. But if we can't position our eyes towards making these learners, even when they are in inclusive or in special school, if we don't put our eyes on how the end result of making them self-reliant, then we are deceiving ourselves, because not all children with special needs will go to higher levels to tertiary institutions. So my major concern is we put our eye on vocationalizing education, whereby if each and every primary school or secondary school can have a vocation center where these children who cannot proceed to higher levels can be trained skills. That is my recommendation. Another one is use of significant others. For example, for me, I'm a survivor and I learned from inclusive school. I was not in a special school. But because there was a significant others who was my primary one teacher and had a disability, so whenever they would nickname me, I would run to her. Because he was a significant others and I managed not to drop out. But these days, very many people are dropping out. So, because when, like for example, me, sometimes they use me in my district to train parents of children with disability. Now when I'm there training, they have confidence in me because I succeeded. So when I'm training, they confide in me than any other person. So because they know I passed through those challenges, their children are going through, and they have interest in what I'm talking. So in your districts, even when somebody is there and not in a higher level, but you are going out to train, you utilize those people who have skills and they are significant others for motivation. They are role models. Yes, thank you. The last one, you make follow-up. For me, what I have seen, mostly in all organizations, even up to ministry level, what the follow-up you make a follow-up on only those who have succeeded. But how about those ones? When Dr. Jok was talking, he said ECD primary learners drop out. but you don't make a follow-up. You make a follow-up on only those who have succeeded, and yet those who have succeeded are very few. How do we help the rest? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much. My name is John Angulivo, District Inspector of Schools, Yumbe. My concern and suggestion about learning to make SNE more practical is that we should really rethink of creating special schools, because human resources is key in making this special or inclusive education practical. The teachers are too few, and in our district, for example, they are over-scattered, and yet these teachers only specialize in a few areas. So somehow we still think that it's important to create special schools in the districts. And then in our district, the experience also is we don't have education officer in charge of special needs, because this policy came when already staffing gaps at the district were already filled up, and there is no room now to accommodate any other officer to cater for special needs education. And also you'll still find that there is no grant.
Can I get clarification? When you say the policy came when the positions were already filled up,
yes.
Are you saying the position of special needs education officers at the district were already filled up?
Yeah, the recruitment which was done earlier was that we have a DEO, there was a senior education officer, and then education officer. These are people who do not have that speciality in special needs education. So right now, there is actually no wage bill to get an officer for special needs. So that is what is happening. I think many of the districts, some of them may tell you the same scenario.
Okay.
And
I
then
think the ministry will process, but I think the correct information is that there is a position for a special needs education officer in every district.
Yes.
So for the district to say there is no wage bill, I think that's a priority issue.
Yes.
yeah.
Even education officer guidance and counseling in Yumbe, that position, there is no wage bill. And then no subvention grants to
Could
schools.
you finalize?
Yes. No subvention grants to schools for SNE, even though the district has tried to create one school which is almost operating as a special school. There is no subvention grant for the learners there. And we tried our best in last year to send them for the national games and sports, and they won a trophy. So I think there is a lot to do at the center here, ministry. Otherwise, special needs down there is having a lot of challenges in implementation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
A district
Let's
doesn't
try to
need
be a
to
little-
create. A district doesn't need to create a school, a special school, in order to access subvention grant, because even the grant can be sent to children with disabilities in inclusive schools. I hope I'm correct. Thank you.
Okay, members, let's try to be very brief. Thank you.
2 or 3 more. Balance the house.
All right, thank you. My name is Isaac from Omoro District Local Government, but I also work in an organization that works for children with disabilities. When it comes to implementation and education department, to be specific, I think what the current speaker was talking about, still this matter can be tracked back to the lack of data to inform the indicative planning figures, to inform the resource allocation at the district. And also, the issue of advocacy still cuts across here to ensure that balancing between, the needs are catered for. Thank you. I beg to submit.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
MC, I think there are many people in other pockets of the house. Balance the distribution of the microphone. Thank you.
Tebiro Nadi, the District Inspector of Schools, Kalangala. I think for the start, let us think of building capacity of selected teachers at school level
to be able to identify, profile, and assess these learners such that they can be assisted. Before we think of a special school or a special center which may not be in the near site, we should think of immediate interventions that could assist our learners to learn. Another thing,
Thank you.
Another thing which I would like to talk about, if we have teachers, at least 1 or 2 per school, and have the capacity to identify and assess these learners, I think the fear of children entering at the age 6 in a school and having not been assessed will be addressed, because many of these schools, ECDs, nurseries, are attached to primary schools. So this teacher at a primary school will be able to assess these learners at the pre-primary level. Thank you.
Right. Could you also come
here?
Thank you very much. Aline Justin, Kanungu District Education Officer in charge of special needs. We have talked a lot, but when I reflect on inclusive setting in our schools, I find that we have tried our level best to convince parents to put their children to school. But when they come, our teachers we have today, they don't have knowledge and skills to cater for these learners who have come. And I'm glad I've heard from curriculum developers that they have the program of training those teachers. But what about those who are in schools today? So my request was that if the ministry could organize a refresher course for these teachers who are already in kind and at least they equip them with some skills and knowledge to manage these learners in order to avoid this kind of dropout before they finish the level. Thank you.
Thank you. Ministry, take
Okay.
note.
How many hands remaining? Only 2?
Please, just one more.
Thank you. Just a very quick one.
Okay.
I know it was mentioned earlier on in terms of instructional materials and the Marrakesh Treaty. Can we have the ministry revise its guidelines on pre-qualification of publishers to ensure that at least a publisher does submit one copy of accessible format as they are submitting their bids? Thank you.
Thank you. Take note, Secretariat.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair of the session. The other time I forgot because of the time limit that we had. I didn't mention my name. My name is Simon Edeku. I stand in for Commissioner Madam Loy. Now, when you look at what is on our screen, the lot of concentration is in the primary and perhaps secondary to some extent. But when you look at tertiary level, we have a very big challenge, where now this learner becomes a trainee, ready now to survive, where is expected to get occupation. You find that we have a very big problem, because most of our instructors, lecturers, do not have skills and knowledge on managing our very blessed people with disability. My request, therefore, is this: let there be a deliberate program engaging potential educational partners, that perhaps this could be done at either regional basis or otherwise, so that we shall be able to impart this to our people. And when you look at, go to our laboratories, go to our workshops, there is no teaching material and other teaching resources that are designed to respond to the needs of the disabled people. So therefore, let's look at that. How is the circle a cycle of a complete, when we can all be happy that finally a disabled person can survive? Just, my friend, I think he has left. You find that when it comes to selections for people to be placed in the health occupation, does it mean to say that all those professional courses offered in health ministry, there is no disabled person that can do it? Can't the person who has got visual impairment do laboratory technology and be able to do work? Can't he be assisted? Please, that's why we are saying today we are beginning the journey, perhaps. Right now, finally, as I sit down in our department, I think any time the paper may come out.
What is that department?
Where that is Department of TVET, Operations and Management, where TVET stands for Technical Vocational Education and Training. Now, we are saying, let's give some slots to the disabled people. And about 92 is coming in. But I was arguing with my colleagues, because of the criteria, they were talking of mathematics, a credit, they were talking of physics, sciences. I told them, no, let's first open this advert. Then we shall have the internal tools to do the assessment. But for now, let's open the gates. That's why I was contributing that when we approach this at a strategic level, where people do the planning, and it is rolled out down, I think we shall hit the target. But short of that, may not be easy.
Thank you.
To submit, sir. Thank you.
Can I proceed to next theme?
Chairperson Guide, how much time remaining? Because
I think most speakers were from the back.
Time check, I think it's now 4.
One from this and then the other lady. Please, one person of your choice from there.
Yes. You have not asked, yes? Contribute.
Thank you so much. I'm just complimenting. Capacity building for teachers is very crucial. I'm Ms. Katunzi Frida, Education Officer Person is Chibali. It's good to capacity build the teachers. At least they should know the concept of special needs. Because if they know the concept of special needs, they will know who to identify. And they should also know the concept of special needs education. I wish they knew. Because special needs education, it is a quality teaching of learners to enable them pass in all areas of learning. So if we are to help the teachers to know the concepts of special needs, they will be able to identify those children with special needs, and they will be able to teach them according to their abilities. So it has support and ensure that teachers are taught how to identify children with special needs and to know the concept. You see, special needs is universal, whereas disabilities is just a subset. You see, there are some special needs which are visible and can be seen. Some are invisible. So teachers should know how to those concepts.
Thank you. The other table.
Okay, thank you. This lady, and then I'm done from this side.
Thank you so much. Iwazubu Allen is my name, Assessment Officer, UBTEB. I'm concerned with tertiary institutions as teaching and assessment is guided by the curriculum. I want to let you know that the curriculum is not inclusive enough, and for that matter, the special needs students are left out. The instructors don't know anything to do with sign language or any specialized kind of arrangement for special needs. And when you look at the curriculum, for us to interface with students at assessment level, that's when you come to know that they are there. But you just realize that these students have never been trained because of the nature of disabilities. Take, for example, a student who doesn't have hands, and the curriculum requires the student to do sign language. So you find that the student has not done anything. but at assessment, we need to do assessment. Students who are doing languages, the deaf students are subjected to do languages. And at assessment, a student is required to do practical speaking, Swahili or French. So you find that the curriculum has left them out. So I recommend that the curriculum should be inclusive enough or provide an alternative at assessment.
That's at what level? TV?
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Dear Chairperson, we have our participants online, and I request the digital team right there to project those comments. If they are visible enough, I'll be able to read them out or try to work on that front.
And I wish online participants were also able to speak and we hear them. I don't know whether the sound system allows that. But are you able to read some samples?
No. I think I'm also visually impaired.
Okay, can the crew, IT crew, work on that, please?
So if you can work on this.
We are not exclusive for the online participants.
I'm told that we have other participants who would wish to contribute, but I've been told that the system we have in the building cannot support the sound. Thank you.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, as the IT people are still working out to get out those comments, I think we can proceed, Chairperson.
Thank you, Chair. Next time, of course, inclusive education dialogues have to be inclusive. Yeah. Okay, so the next theme is identification, assessment, and placement. Somebody from Crane has already talked about identification and assessment. I think you need to understand these two terms well. Identification, assessment of disability status, to know that a child has a disability and has this type of disability. Okay, that is one, maybe disability status assessment. But there's also functional assessment, that is to determine what are the special educational needs of a child with a certain disability, which assessment can then inform pedagogy, the methods and the different responses in the school. And then placement has to do with where children with disabilities go to learn. Could be placement by type of school. We've talked about special schools, integrated, inclusive, also levels from primary, secondary, tertiary, and so on. So all these are the issues that we need to talk about under early identification, assessment, and placement. And of course, the whole issue of how then do we do it? Do we have a tool that is used nationally validated and approved tool that can be used from at different levels by the different actors? So really, I want to open it up to you, just to guide. When you stand, it is no longer an issue of lamentation only. Yes, point out issue if there is, but we are interested in how do we address those issues going forward. So really mention the action contribution that you want us to take note of. Thank you. Yeah, third. Could you also start from this side so you balance the house? It's a hand there. Also, if there are online participants who want to speak, okay, I think, do we have? And, okay. So there is a contribution from Paul. Could you read it?
This is from Area Paul Njuchi to everyone. I have many concerns. They include, one, we need to be mindful of the fact that I think that's implementation of that word has huge financial implications which Uganda must be prepared for. As pointed out, costed frameworks are necessary, and so the need for development of realistic roadmaps. That is Njuchi. He has quite a number of concerns. The second one, I'm a bit skeptical about using the WDOs, but next time, Dr. Njuchi, you should also write some of those words in full. We may not be able to know.
W what?
WGOs.
What is, maybe the WGS?
The soul guide, try to put it clear so that
can I say that? MC, the acronym you are complaining about is the Washington Group Short Set of Questions.
Say it again.
The Washington Group Short Sets of Questions.
Very good.
On disability. Yeah.
That's very one.
So, read that concern.
You have moved very fast. Please,
read that.
I'm a bit skeptical about using the WGOs and the soul guide to disability scoping. I find the questions narrow as they don't include learners who are gifted and talented, social and emotional challenges, specific speech and language disorders, among others. In reflecting about inclusive education, I think we need to decide our main target, that is disability or vulnerability. This is Namara Christine. By the fact that there is a very low level of special needs schools, data capture in local governments is very difficult. Maybe robust inclusive data is the best option for inclusive planning at the national level and service delivery distribution. Thank you, Madam Namara Christine. This is Paul Njuchi again. Accessibility should be viewed beyond physical infrastructure in learning settings. Hyper-focusing on the physical infrastructure leaves many learners, especially those with intellectual impairments, outside schools. Okay? Other comments? This is Zamzam. Okay. Zamzam. They are all this is okay. Again, I think this is the very last one from Dr. Njuchi. Teacher capacity should address the issue of teacher motivation. Many SNE teachers have deserted the profession or chosen to take up administrative responsibilities to earn better than supporting CWDs.
Children with disabilities.
That is, of course, children with disabilities. ICT.
Okay.
It's fine. I think the message was very clear. So now let's embark on the third.
That was good to give attention to the online participants.
We want to thank our dear participants online once again. We can't take it for granted. Kindly remain with us after the end of this session.
Before that, we were meant to start from this side.
If we could maybe guide how much time, because we have already entered the very last hour.
Let's be faithful to the 5 this time.
Okay, thank you once again. The solution to assessment, one, I would suggest that we should revive the defunct assessment centers. If we fail, at least we need like 5 regional assessment centers in Uganda, so that each region can have their children assessed and given technical guidance, okay, which informs placement. Another one I want to say is we have screening identification tool, I think, which was developed by the ministry. If it would be available to each school, and perhaps some teachers taken through how to use it, they would use that screening tool to identify learners with the special needs or with the disabilities, so that they capture them in their register, and also in case any person comes to school and say, how many children with disabilities you have, at least you have some information.
Okay.
Thank you.
Could you bring the mic?
Okay, thank you. Another person? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Looking at some discussions and from Paul and then the last comments, I think it is very important to clarify about the data collection and what tool we use for what purpose. Like Dr. Jok said, identify is one thing, but assessment is another thing. And whether the learning needs identification tool is for what, Washington Group question is for what, I think there are still confusions. So there should be a separate, very technical, in-depth discussions to clarify and then how it can actually help the Ministry of Education to collect reliable data without excluding, or leaving any child behind.
Yeah.
Great. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. When we talk about assessment, two things come to play. We are talking about assessment of learning, and then we are talking about assessment for learning. Much of what we have been talking about is assessment for learning. That is formative, everything required to prepare for assessment. However, I would like to talk about assessment of learning. That one touches UNEB. And I want to take this opportunity to respond to my son, Moses, who asked about the ICT issue. And then the concern from a lady from, I don't know where, but she's there. She's saying that, okay, let me start with the lady. She said, why can't UNEB go down to other classes? I just want to respond to you this way. UNEB is mandated to marry only one woman, and that woman is called a candidate. And the candidate is only in PLOE, UCE, and USCE. That is our mandate. So that is where we can only end up with our data capture, as far as SNE is concerned. So whatever data I was talking about earlier, it is talking about PLOE, UCE, and USCE. However, we have the other aspect of National Assessment of Progress in Education, NAPE, which is also within UNEB's mandate. We are looking at other classes, but that's a discussion for another time. Now, back to my son. You are asking the issue of ICT, Moses Ayoli.
And sub-math requirements.
Sub-math requirement. You know, in the morning, Madam Mola cautioned us. She said, nothing to us without us. Ugandans say nothing for us without us. The issue, if I can take you briefly, you remember when there was a restructuring in the national NCDC, where general science was one of the subjects that was dropped. The concern came from schools for the blind. They say, no, you are dropping general science. That's one of our subjects. So it was brought back for only blind candidates. And then there was another concern that came in. We included candidates who are dyslexic. So those are the two candidates that are benefiting the general science at the moment because of the challenges that we are looking at in the ordinary science. So the blind still benefit on general science, and then those with dyslexia. Now, when UNEB introduced the issue of ICT in schools, again, about 7 years ago, the blind, schools for the blind complained. They said, no, we are not ready, and we have to respect them. We told them, okay, when you are ready to do ICT, tell us. So after about 3-4 years, they wrote back to UNEB and say, we are now ready for ICT examinations, and they are doing it very well. Now, when we tell you, UNEB tells you that now this issue of general science with sub-math and so on, I mean ICT with sub-math, we are asking you, please put it in writing to UNEB. It's a reason, because we want to involve you in this process. We don't want to make a decision without, we want you yourself to say, okay, we are unable to do this for this reason, or we want to do this for this reason. When you do that, UNEB is always in the process of listening, and we can give out a waiver where it is necessary after consultations. That's what I can tell you.
Thank you for that elaborate answer.
Okay, thank
and
you.
maybe it would help to compile a few cases of those who have been affected by the scenario that he has pointed out. How many students with the blindness wanted to do economics, but they were barred because of the sub-math requirement? That can help to make a case for a reform. Otherwise, now we're going to allow just one more on this thing. Then we go to
Who is
the
this
last
lady
thing.
here? Okay, talk to us, introduce yourself, and then give your comment. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'm called Jolly Asaba. I work with Directorate of Education Standards, and I'm actually here to represent my director. I want also to, I've been listening since morning, but on the issue of data collection as this, we have just reviewed the inspection tools. And at least we have included issues of inclusive education. We have included issues of data collection, but at schools level, right from ECD, learning centers, ECD, teacher training institutions, primary, secondary, TVET, to ensure that at least we get the issues of enrollment of learners, both males, females, and learners with special needs also according to the gender. I think, and also other domains, of course. I think when we begin from there, at least something will be done, but in the learning institutions. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. With that, let's go to the last theme. So our last thematic focus for discussion is on the concept of reasonable accommodation. So just for those who might need to understand it, the requirements under the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, and then also now been domesticated in Uganda in the Persons with Disabilities Act 2020. It is required under the employment provision, that is in the workplace. Actually, you're supposed to provide reasonable accommodation for persons with disabilities. All employers must know this. And then also at school level, there are implicit reasonable accommodation requirements under the education section of the Persons with Disabilities Act. What reasonable accommodation is about is that when you admit a learner with a disability, there are unique difficulties that a learner may experience that will prevent them or limit them from participating in a school activity or a learning activity, and that difficulty is associated to the nature or degree of their disability. And the reasonable accommodation is to say, if a learner is facing a barrier, say in oral communication perception because of a hearing difficulty, so the child is in your school, in your class, so the requirement is that as a school, you must, by law, make arrangement to give a sign language interpretation service to unlock the oral communication barrier for this child with hearing difficulty, so that the child has the same access to the oral communication parts of the other learners. Okay? Or the child comes to your school, is on a wheelchair or even lacks a wheelchair, but let's talk about a child with a physical impairment, is in school, but is not able to navigate the headmaster's office, the classrooms or the lecture rooms because of the reason of their physical
disability. So reasonable accommodation is to say make adjustments in these physical barriers so that the child or the staff with this physical or mobility difficulty can access your school or office or workplace premises. And this reasonable accommodation is not limited to the examples I've given. Every disability will have its own requirements or needs. So for your info, it is now also a law in our domestic policies. It used to be under the CRPD only, but now it is also domesticated. So the issue then is, are we practicing this in schools? Are we practicing this at different levels of education? UNEP is doing an excellent job. My teacher Alenyo came and told you few learners who progress to become candidates. But what happens at the school end of term exam, monthly test, and in the teaching itself? There are still a lot of reasonable. So this being a call to action dialogue, the planners said that we need to discuss and then come up with some action points. So I really wanted to just clarify in case there are people in the house who needed that conceptual understanding of the concept of reasonable accommodation. And then I want now to give it back to you to propose the measures going forward. Thank you.
Okay. Having said that, where are the hands? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ojok, for that elaboration. I want to appreciate UNEB really for responding to our calls for reasonable accommodations for candidates. But I would like to request that these accommodations are provided even during the child's experience in school, so that it's not a shock to this candidates at the end of the cycle, that they are used to a transcriber, for instance, to support them in their journey of learning. Thank you very much.
So that is one, to cascade the UNEB model down to the school. Okay.
Thank you very much, Doctor, for elaborating on reasonable accommodation. As the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, it is our recommendation that all schools have a component of reasonable accommodation. In the schools that we are piloting in inclusive education, we have a component of community awareness raising, and we've had so many children come to the schools, but because there is no reasonable accommodation for them, they keep dropping out. So our call to action is that we provide this for the learners in forms of assistive devices, assistive technologies. We provide them with sign language interpreters. We provide them with skilled teachers in areas of Braille, with teachers who will support learners with intellectual impairment in these schools. So our call to action that every actor that is supporting inclusive education in the different areas, please look at reasonable accommodation as a very important aspect of inclusion. It is where children now start dropping out. They come and they are present, but when they get to school and they cannot access the learning, they start dropping out. So we call for that individual support to this learner to stay in school. Thank you so much.
Thank you. There is Robert here, sign language user, needs to make a contribution. Right in front here. He wants to speak? Okay. Could you focus the
thank you so
camera
much.
on him as well?
Chair, about the reasonable accommodation. My name is Robert.
The camera on the sign language.
Nkwangu.
Yeah. Focus on him. Reasonable accommodation struggles.
Yeah, about the issue of reasonable accommodation, again, my name is Robert Nkwangu. I'm the Executive Director, UNAD. So on the matter of reasonable accommodation is, I am much interested in the approaches, in the basically sustainable approaches. We need really to think about the long term. Of course, there are many approaches, and many of us have tried what we can do. And and I really think that we have members from the public service, and we need to target public service as a key aspect here. If we can have all these aspects taken care of in the structure of public service, this all support that we need, that we require, should be really taken care of. Whether we're talking about primary school, secondary school, or university and tertiary institutions, we really need to make sure that we have this piece or personnel included in the structure. I think that would be a better recommendation, that we have this human resource at the schools. If we can have the policy to guide in this kind of area, then it would be much more better. So that's why public service is very relevant, because we can actually have the remuneration. I'll give you an example of interpreters here. Private schools actually provide interpreters, and it is also taken care of privately by the student, the parents themselves, and individuals who are providing for the interpreters. But it's not a sustainable move. So that's why we need a policy. We need a policy. Ministry of Education, we've sunk about the policy and the policy. We need a structure that provides for all these services. And I can give a simple example of interpreters. Just as we pay the teachers, we should have the personnel as well recruited into the system, and we shall have a sustainable plan. There are two things really confusing to me from Dr. Patrick. Where are we talking about the school's provision of reasonable accommodation? Is it entirely the school that is supposed to provide reasonable accommodation, or the Ministry of Education? I need clarity from you, Dr. Patrick.
Thank you.
Wow. Hey, are you supposed to clap, or you do it using the sign language? 1, 2, 3, go. Wow. Hey. By the end of the day, at least you must learn something. Yes. Chairperson?
The house is still very rich. I don't know what to do. But for Robert, as you make your pick, who is to provide reasonable accommodation? I think reasonable accommodation has to be provided at the point of need. So if the person is at the ministry level, let us say I'm a staff at ministry and I need this in order to work, the ministry has to do it. If I am at school and I need this in order to study in this school, the school has the responsibility to provide the obligation to provide for me the required reasonable accommodation. However, schools may need support from ministry or other partners to be able to provide certain reasonable accommodation measures. There are measures that the school can provide that are reasonable within the school's capacity, but there may be others that the school may not be in capacity to provide. Like when you say hire a sign language interpreter, and you tell that to a government school which has no budget